I might live for him, and it was nothing. Nothing but the wonderful grace. Not of my goodness, not because of my love. The wonderful grace. No. It was nothing but the wondrous grace. My God. I've been completely set free, and it was nothing, no. Nothing but the wonderful grace. No, nothing but the wonderful grace. Nothing but the wonderful grace. Praise the Lord. Oh my God. See, when you talk about grace, you got to talk about this twin called mercy. But all you got to talk about that cousin called justice. Because if it was left to justice, we all be dead and gone. But grace said, no, I'll pay the price. So somebody asked the question that said, well, where did grace come from? Let me tell you what John said. John said, in the beginning was grace, and grace was with God, and grace was God, and grace became flesh, and grace became the Word. And Isaiah said he was wounded for our transgression, and said by his stripes we are healed. So I can enter to the throne of grace, and I can say, our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth and in heaven. I know it was nothing but the grace of when I'm down, I don't know what to do. When the enemy comes against me, I'm flooded. Then I'll stand right by you. I'll be there through thick and thin. I can call the name of Jesus. Jesus. Oh, how wonderful is the name. Can I get a witness this morning? What he's done for me? Did he bring you? Bless him. Bless him. You ought to bless him right now. Thank you. Praise. Did he not do it for you? Did he not change your life? He picked me up and he turned me around. He planted my feet on the solid ground. Yes, he did. I can stand boldly and come before his grace. Oh, what he's done for me. Oh, he changed my life completely.
Giving honor to God, to our pastor, Pastor Boyd, and our First Lady, as well as all of the ministers of the gospel, including Reverend K.W. Toulis, who heads National Action Network for us here, and all of you that have gathered at this hour. First, I thank God for another day. I thank God because we should not take for granted any day that he gives us life and gives us what he didn't owe us and that we didn't earn. I also thank God for this, the oldest black congregation in the city of Los Angeles. I want you to turn very briefly to the book of 1 Kings, first chapter. Seventh verse reads, Adoniah took Joab and the priest into his confidence, and they agreed to help him become king. Then the 11th verse reads, Then Nathan went to Bathsheba, Solomon's mother, and asked her, Haven't you heard that Haggith's son Adoniah has made himself king, and our Lord David doesn't even know about it? If you want to save your own life and the life of your son Solomon, follow my advice. Go at once to King David and say to him, My Lord, the king, didn't you make a vow and say to me, your son Solomon will surely be the next king and will sit on thy throne? May God add a blessing to the reading of his word. I want to use for a thought at this hour Don't let them steal your crown. Don't let them steal your crown. I come to this historic pulpit, Reverend Boyd, on the 144th anniversary of this, the first organized African-American congregation of Los Angeles. I come with two things that trouble me in the immediate zone. One, a couple of weeks ago, was the untimely and unfortunate passing of a member of the Supreme Court. Though I didn't agree with much of his rulings, I respected his intellect, and I always respect the family of one that loses a loved one. His untimely death led to a vacancy in the Supreme Court. And before this man could even be pronounced dead for 24 hours, there were members of the United States Senate saying that they would not even allow the president to send them a nominee that they would grant an interview, less known a hearing. And it seemed like an immediate reaction to reduce the powers of the President of the United States, that clearly in the United States Constitution says that it is not only his right, but his duty and obligation to nominate and to raise the nomination for the justices of the Supreme Court. That followed not long after, just a few weeks bore that, in this city, the Academy Awards announced the nominations for the Oscars or the Academy Awards that would be given for the year 2016. A year that we saw movies like Idris Elba's No Beast, No Nation, Beast of No Nation, and movies like Straight Outta Compton, and movies like Concussion and Creed. Yet when the nominations were announced, not one of those movies, not one of those actors, not one of those actresses of color were nominated for the second year in a row. Now, last year, when they made nominations and we were not in the top nominations, and Nash Action Network and some of us raised questions, Reverend Tulis, Najee Ali, and I was prepared to rally. Some said, wait, we know we need to do better. We know we need to improve. And Reverend Boyd, we said, fine, let us work together and let us make this right. We heard nothing. A few months later, emails were released. The chairman of the board of Sony Pictures was mocking in racial language the President of the United States. She flew to New York, met with me, met with the President of Urban League, said, let us do better. Yes, you're right, Reverend Al. There are no blacks that can even green light a film in Hollywood. With all this liberal image of how progressive Hollywood is and how it sets the trend, not one black can green light a film. We can put a black family in the White House, but we can't put a black in the boardroom with power in Hollywood. They said we'll do better. They didn't keep their word then or there. So this afternoon, we're going to start a movement to teach them, since they couldn't do it on their own. We're going to give them a little pressure. Because we're going to say to the advertisers of the Oscars, because let me explain something, y'all. They don't have the Oscars just for pomp and ceremony. They make a lot of money. And the money comes from advertisers. And the advertisers' money comes from us. And we're going to tell advertisers, we know you couldn't break your contracts this year. But we putting you on notice going forward that if they want to have a whites-only awards, you don't need no black dollars in your pocket. If you want to cut us out, we'll just cut you off. Because if we don't watch it, then it's of no value to the advertisers. And believe me, there are many advertisers that may agree or disagree with me, but they rather not get in the midst of the controversy. So we come, oh, here they come to stir things up. Yeah, we did. Because you don't understand it when we talk in a way that would lead to you doing what's right. You know, my mother used to warn me. And then when I wouldn't do a warning or heed to a warning, she would get a little sterner to correct my behavior. So they will call it rallies, march, whatever they call it. Whatever they call it tonight on the news, you know I'm just engaging in corrective behavior. Because they don't seem to get it on their own. We cannot have the face of American culture exclude us. We cannot project that we are less than able to compete at the highest level of American artistry, especially since we pay for it. One reporter asked me, Reverend Boyd, said, well, Reverend Al, what about the black artists that are going to attend? Are you asking them not to go? Absolutely not. I don't want nobody to get in a position to lose their job. This is not about the artists. This is about the industry. What about Chris Rock? Y'all are friends. We are friends. He tells jokes. I tell the truth. We both understand each other. This ain't about Chris Rock. This is about Hattie McDaniels. So 2 o'clock on Sunset in Highland, we're meeting. They're meeting also in front of studios of ABC all over the country, New York, Cleveland, Detroit, Atlanta. We're starting a process today. But it brings me back to the Bible. Because people have been trying to get away with duplicity a long time. There was a king named David. David had become king. He was an unlikely king. he was not one that you would have ever expected to be king. In fact, when he was coming up, Saul was king. But God had anointed and appointed Saul king. But sometimes people become so enticed with their own title and become so infatuated with their own self-aggrandizement that they forget that God blessed them and start thinking it is all about them. But one thing about God, God ain't got to argue with you. God can just move on around you. God looked and called his servant and told his servant, the prophet Samuel, he said, Samuel, I'm going to move on beyond Saul now. I know you know him and you like him, but I've already chosen a new king. He said, well, what do you want me to do? I want you to fill your horn up with oil. And I want you to go to Bethlehem. There's a man in Bethlehem named Jesse. And I've already named one of his sons to be the new king. I always wondered, boy, coming up, why didn't God just tell him who to anoint? But if Samuel knew who he was looking for, we would have thought it was Samuel's choice. But because Samuel didn't even know which son it was, we know that it was God's choice. When Samuel got to Jesse's house, he gave him the good news that one of your boys, one of your sons, is going to be the new king of Israel. You can imagine how elated this father Jesse was. He was about to go down in history. One of his sons would have power. He went and got one of his older sons. He was tall and strapping, looked like a leader. God whispered to Samuel, no, not him. Well, he went and got another one who spoke well and who was eloquent and could titillate your ear with his oratorical abilities. God whispered, no, not him. And the Bible says went through all of them, and God said no to none of them. Now you can imagine Samuel was embarrassed. He didn't know what to do. He had got this man all excited, yet he turned down all of his sons, and almost as an afterthought. Walt, you know what it is. You and I have been afterthoughts. As an afterthought, he said, do you have any more sons? And as an afterthought, he said, oh yeah, I got one more. But he's just a shepherd boy. He's out there feeding sheep. Samuel said, well, we can't finish this till he come in. And somebody went and called the shepherd boy. David came in, and the Bible said his hair was all tossed all over his head, and he must have smelled like lamb that day. But before he even got in the house good, God whispered and said, that's him. I know some of y'all got big titles, and I know some of y'all sit in big positions, and I know some of y'all have the right pedigree and the right background. But sometimes God ain't looking for a big shot. Sometimes God ain't looking for somebody sitting high. Sometime God needs somebody that'll go just feed the sheep. Samuel anointed David. And as time went on, David became king. But now let's fast forward. David is in his later years. David had gone through, as many of us lived in life, gone through ups and downs. And one of his most trying moments was when he and Bathsheba got together. Y'all know the story, you biblical scholars. David had been king. David went through all of the elevation, but lust grabbed him. Saw this woman that was bathing, and in her bathing, he became infatuated with her. But there was a complication. She was married. So he decided he wanted her anyway, and he sent her husband off to war, and her husband died, and he married her. You could imagine the scandal that would have been if it had been in LA 2016. But David went on, and the child did not live, but they went on, had another child, and David and her married, and God forgave him, and he kept going. That's why some of y'all are looking at folk now in church, running your mouth about a mistake they made that them and God done got past. You might as well get over it. Some of y'all sitting up here with complexes and guilt about something you done. But I come to tell you, God can forgive you. In fact, in many cases, God already forgave you. It's time for you to forgive yourself. Because God got more for you to do. David, in his old age, looked at this woman who he had engaged in this violation and said, I want to promise you that our other son, Solomon, when I make my transition, he will be the new king. He will wear my crown. As years went on and David got sick and there were other sons of his, the Bible says Adoniah, who was being pushed by his mother, said Solomon shouldn't be king. He is a child of that woman who was in the scandal with your daddy. Your daddy old now. He don't know what's going on. Go over there and get the wise men and get the big shots, and we're going to have a party. And we're going to announce you the new king. We're going to have the banquet, and we're going to take the crown, even though it was promised somewhere else. We're going to have the banquet, something like they're going to have this afternoon. We're going to exclude who should be there. And we're going to have the awards without it being a fair contest. But the prophet, Nathan, slipped in to talk to Bathsheba. Sort of like how I slipped into LA today to talk to y'all. Nathan said, Bathsheba, I don't know if you heard, but they getting ready to have a party. They getting ready to crown Adoniah the new king. But isn't it true that David promised your son, Solomon, that he would wear the crown? I don't want to start no trouble. But I've just come to tell you to save your own life and to save Solomon's life. You better go find a way to tell the king, don't let them steal your crown. She said, well, it is true he promised me this. How do I do it? He said, well, just go to him and ask him, remind him he promised Solomon the crown, and then inform him of what they're doing to steal it. And then I'll come in and verify it and have the wise men with me. I come to the oldest rock of faith in Black Los Angeles. I come to the place that slaves and ex-slaves organized their first prayer meetings. I come to the place when we didn't have the right to vote and the right to be police and the right to be anything in town. We had our own bonds to hold hands and call on God. I come to tell you, they having a party downtown and somebody trying to steal our crown. But I remember God promised Hattie McDaniels, God promised Martin Luther King, God promised Fannie Lou Hamer that he would make a way out of no way. And I come to tell you, don't let them steal your crown. Not only that, let me say this and I'll sit down. It's not only the academy. It's not only the Supreme Court. It's in your own life. Everybody in here, God promised you your crown. Nobody here was born for no reason. There would have been 1,000 reasons that your mama wouldn't have had you, but God guided you through the dangers and brought you in this world. But you've allowed others to talk you out of achieving what it is God have laid in your path. You've let mistakes trip you up. You've let shortfallings trip you up. You've let people underestimating you trip you up. I was telling Reverend Toulis this morning, I tell my daughters all the time, if you look at the world, it works in perfect precision. That's right. Never seen the sun and the moon bump into each other. 9 planets, you never seen any one of them collide. You see God sends the rain and it grows the grass. Everything complements each other in perfect order and precision. So why do you think after thousands of years of precise and excellent work that you are God's first mistake? Go ahead. If everything God did is in order, then when he made you, and when you became a result of a divine decision he made, he didn't mess up even if you did. He can take your mess and use it to strengthen you. Well, Rev Mal, you don't know what I've done. Whatever you've done, you got through it. And you can use it to educate others how they can avoid death. Maybe God needs some messy folk to help get us out of this mess. Some of y'all too clean and snooty to be any good to us now. You know, I go a lot of places, Reverend Boyd, and people be telling me, Reverend Al, you need to know me. I've got the right background. Everybody loves me. I've never done no wrong, never been in no kind of controversy. I'm clean and no blemish. Well, don't hang out with me. Because if you ain't never been through nothing, I don't know if you can get through nothing. I like to hang out with folk that been knocked down and been talked about and been scandalized and been rubbed through the mud, and somehow God picked them up and clean them off. If you ain't been through nothing, you just guessing what God can do. But if you like me, if you've been through the fire, if you've been through the flood, if you walked the floor all night and didn't know if tomorrow was coming, if you had your heart broken, if you had your pillow wet with tears, and somehow God made a way, you can thank him this morning because you know him for yourself. I'm about to sit down, but let me tell you, I started preaching when I was a little boy. When I was a little boy, I used to preach what I heard the old preachers preach. But I'm not a little boy no more, boy. But I can preach a little better now, because I preach what I know for myself. He walks with me. He talks with me. He tells me that I'm his own. He's been food when I was hungry. He been water when I was thirsty. He's my rock, my sword and shield, my wheel, my wheel, my wheel. In the middle of the wheel, he's a lily of the valley, the bright and morning star. He woke me up this morning, started me on my way. Yes, 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 yes. In my life, I've had to cry sometime. In my life, I walked alone sometime. I've been lied on, cheated, talked about. I've been mistreated. I've been up, I've been down. I've been leveled to the ground. I've been stabbed. I've been prosecuted. But through it all, through it all, through it all, I've learned to trust in Jesus. I've learned to trust in God. Through it all, I've learned to depend on his word. He'll make a way. He'll make a way. He'll make a way. Yes, he will. Yes, he will. Yes, 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 yes. You know, I known Walt since I was a youngster, running around with James Brown. I know Walt as he reads about me, and years later, sometimes he worries about me. I get in some controversy. I get in some foolishness. And I know Walt be looking out for his friend. But don't worry about me, Walt. Though the storms keep on raging in my life, and sometimes it's hard to tell the night from the day, I keep my eyes on that place he has prepared for you and me. So even if the storms keep raging, even if the wind keep blowing in my life, don't worry about shouting. My soul is anchored in the Lord. My soul is anchored in the Lord. Yes, yes,